to another edition of WP Dominate. Today we are going to be focusing in on theme development, and as you see here I have a web browser open to the theme development page on the WordPress codex, which is always a great thing to refer back to as you're developing a theme, as they give a lot of great information on how to do certain things, what functions to use within your themes, and how to format your code. Basically anything you can possibly think of that would help with theme development. So if you were following along in past lessons, we previously set up a local website using MAMP Pro that we were going to use for theme development. And in another tutorial, we set up our Themers workspace with a number of plugins and introduced a number of tools that help with theme development. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and open up the local site that I created for theme development, my themetest.dev, where we have just the default theme that ships with WordPress 2015. And as you can see, we have all of the content, the dummy content that we uploaded in the video on theme development tools. This is going to help us just to have some content, so that way as we're developing the theme we can see how that content is going to display on page. So next, if we log into the back end of our theme development site, we're just going to take a look at those plugins that we uploaded really quick, kind of go through what a couple of them does, make sure a couple are activated, and make sure that we're really set up to develop themes. So let's go ahead and log in. Okay, and if we take a look at the plugin list here, we'll see a number of plugins: Debug Bar Console, Debug Bar Cron. All of these plugins were recommended by the developer plugin, which helps with developing themes and plugins, and was created by Automatic, the people behind WordPress. If we head over to Tools and click on Developer, we get this awesome screen that helps us to set up our development environment on our local test site. So when we set up this plugin, we said that we were going to be developing a theme for a self-hosted WordPress installation, which is what this is. And it recommended a number of plugins, and it tells us whether or not they're active and gives a little description of the plugin so we can decide whether or not we really need them active or not. And for this tutorial, we're just going to activate a handful of plugins, because a lot of them, like Pig Latin, for example, actually gets in the way. What the Pig Latin plugin does is it turns all of the menu items into Pig Latin. This helps when we're developing our themes and plugins for other languages, which is not something that we're going to be diving into today. And in the bottom, we see some things that we should drop into our WP config file. This will help WordPress output error messages and things that we need to know right on screen as we're developing. And as we can see, we actually didn't do that. So that's the first thing that I'm going to want to do. So in order to do that, I'm going to open up my sites folder. That's where all of the files for my themetest.dev website is located. You can see it's in themetest.dev. I'm just going to drag that whole folder right into my text editor, Sublime Text. And that's just going to open up all of my website's files into my text editor here. Okay, and in WP config, in order to turn on WP Debug, I need to go to, first of all, I need to open up my WP config file. This is where we have all the database credentials and all that stuff that gets our website up and going. And in wp-config.php, I'm just going to add a line that sets WP Debug to true. That's going to allow the developer plugin to output all of the errors and things that it needs to output, so we know what's going on with our theme. Normally I would add a comment line and describe exactly what I'm doing, but since this is just a test environment for us, I'm just going to toss that in there because I know what that's for and I know why it's there. And I'm just going to save that file. Okay, so now if we go back to our admin area where our developer plugin is, and we reload that page, we should see Wp Debug as being set. Okay, and that's ready to go. The next thing they want us to do is to set up Pretty Permalinks. Pretty Permalinks is what takes the URL that you're looking at in WordPress. By default, it'll say post 1 or post 2 or page 1 or page 2 in the URL string. With Pretty Permalinks, we can actually add titles of our posts or categories or things of that nature into our URL, making them a lot more search friendly. Okay, and to set up Pretty Permalinks, we go over to Settings, Permalinks. And it gives us a menu that shows us what our permalinks is currently set to. Okay, and we can see the default is set to p = 123. That's just an example of a permalink if we're accessing a page or a post. And we can see we have a number of different permalink structures that we can select here. We can do dates and times plus the post name. We can do month plus the post name. We can do something numeric. We can do just the post name, or we can create our own custom structure. Now, what I like to do, I like to make sure the post name is in the URL for search engine friendly purposes, SEO purposes, but I also like to make sure that the category is in there, because a lot of times when I'm naming a category, it has a lot to do with what the post is about, so it really should be in the URL. And to do that, we can select custom structure, and as you'll notice that when we did post name, it gave us these little % signs with the tag post name. Now we can do the same thing with category. Okay, we can add a /%, write out the word category, do another %. That's basically going to make the word category a wildcard, so we can input the actual category slug or name. Slug is another fancy word for name with dashes instead of spaces. So it's going to output our category name and then our post name for all of our posts. And we can just save changes. Okay, so now if we go back to our developer screen, we should see Pretty Permalinks as being active or enabled, and it is. Okay, so on to what we're actually trying to accomplish today. What we want to do is create a theme so that we can enable it here in the back end. Okay, and that's actually a really quick and painless process. And the first thing that we need to do that, we're going to go back into our code editor where we have our themetest.dev website set up. We're going to go into our WP content folder. That's where all of our themes and plugins are stored. We're going to go to our themes directory, and we'll see that we have a number of themes that ship with WordPress by default: 2015, 2014, and 2013. And if we just look around in some of those folders, we can see there are a number of other directories, CSS, we have an includes folder, a JavaScript folder that's meant to separate out all the different files that go with this particular theme. And then we have a number of different template files. All these files that end in .php are template files. They're meant to grab specific pieces of information from our WordPress database and display them on the page. Okay, and they're all named according to what template file they're in. So comments.php is purely for how comments are displayed. Okay, so a lot of these PHP functions are grabbing the comments from our database, deciding what post they belong to, and displaying those comments on the page. So to create a new theme, we're going to right-click on the themes folder. We're going to go down to new folder because we're creating a new directory for our theme. Okay, and under folder name, why don't we call it my new theme? Here you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to stick with my new theme. When we hit enter, we can see that a new directory is created for our theme. Now within this directory, we're going to create two files. Okay, if we right click on the directory and click new file, we're going to save that new file. It's going to be saved into my new theme. The first one we're going to create is called style.css. Okay, this is where all of our themes styles live, as well as a set of CSS comments that has information that WordPress uses in order to display our theme in the back end of WordPress. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save style.css, and then we're going to create a new file. We're going to save that as index.php. This is the very first template file that WordPress looks for. If you refer back to the video that we did on the anatomy of a theme, you would see that whenever a theme file isn't available, WordPress looks for the next file in the theme hierarchy, and index.php is the very base file that WordPress looks for. So as long as we have that there, something will display on the page. Okay, so we're going to save index.php. Now, we have our two files, okay, and we need these two files in order for a WordPress theme to exist, and really only these two files. Everything else is extra. We're going to start in style.css, okay, and as I mentioned before, we need to create a doc block that has some of our theme information in it. Okay, and to show you what that is, we're going to go back over to the theme development page on the WordPress Codex. Okay, and this is an example of the comment line that we use in style.css. So I'm just going to copy this. Obviously the information is incorrect, so we're going to change that. Okay, I'm going to just paste that into my style.css file. Now the different lines here, okay, theme name, our theme was just called my new theme. Theme URI, if you're building themes, a lot of times you're going to put them on your website, or you're going to upload them to the WordPress repository. If you haven't done that, or you're not going to do that, we don't really need to include this. Author, we can just put our name or our company name in there. Author URI, I'll do wpdominate.com. Again, these are all things that we don't really need in there, but it's good information to have, and I'll show you where this information gets used when we go to activate our theme. Description. This is also not mandatory, but we're just going to write one in there anyways. Let's say this is an awesome theme. We're going to add an exclamation point to that. Version number, again, not important, but why don't we just call it version 1.0. License, this is pretty important. All themes for WordPress are part of a certain license. I'm not really going to get into that too much. I'm just going to leave the license as it is. The license that WordPress uses is called the GPL. It basically says that it's free software. We're not responsible if you break something with it, yada, yada, yada. So for the time being, we can just leave that particular license in here just so people can refer back to it if we upload our theme to the WordPress repository. There's really no need to change it. Tags, there's all kinds of tags that we can use. You can read more about that in the codex. I'm just going to leave that blank. Text domain. This is also something that we don't necessarily have to put in our theme when we're starting, but WordPress is going to look for that when we start to get into things like translation. So we want to come up with a text domain for our theme, and a lot of times it's just our entire theme name lowercase. No need to get fancy with this because no one's even going to see it, only us, or another developer that digs into our code. Okay, and this little line here, we can just leave that there. That's just more information about the GPL license. Okay, we're going to save this file. Okay, and WordPress is now going to have all the information it needs to display our theme in the back end of WordPress. Before we activate our theme, though, I just want to start our template file. Okay, so then since this is the first file that WordPress grabs, I'm going to put something in it. If it'll let me. I'm just going to open a PHP tag. I'm going to do an echo statement. I know we haven't gotten too much into PHP, but basically what an echo statement does is it just outputs something to our screen. Okay, I'm just basically going to write us a little message saying that everything worked out. Okay, we have a theme in our themes directory and we were successfully able to activate it. Obviously this isn't going to be here when we actually start developing our theme, but this tells us that what we did was correct and we can move on to the next step. Okay, so now after I save index.php, I can go to my WordPress admin. I go to Appearance Themes. This will list out all of the themes that I currently have available to me. And we see that my new theme is now an option in the back end of WordPress. And if we click on Theme Details, we can see all of the other things that we put into style.css, right? Okay, so we have the author name. It's by Wp Dominate. If we right-click on Wp Dominate, they use the link, the author link that we added, to link to our website. Okay, so if I follow that, I can check out wpdominate.com. Okay, pretty cool. Our version number was 1, and the description we gave was this is an awesome theme. And if we added tags, surely we would be able to see some tags below our description as well. Okay, so now if we hit activate, it's going to activate our new theme. Okay, so we're not using 2015 anymore, we're using my new theme. If we go to the front end of theme test dev and reload it, we can see our theme has been activated successfully, that PHP message that we echoed. So we know that we did this first part right. Now we can move forward with developing our theme. So I will see you on the next edition of WP Dominate.